Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We're just going to wait a few minutes to get everybody settled in our Zoom webinar, and then we'll get started. Good evening, everybody. We're waiting as some people are coming in from our waiting area. Welcome to our Zoom webinar for Minding Your Mind and our Lifelines kickoff. We'll just give everyone a few minutes to get signed in, and then we'll get started with tonight's program. Okay, well, welcome everyone to Hillsborough Township Public Schools presentation of Minding Your Mind. We're excited to have some guest speakers tonight. My name is Jessica Smedley. I am the Director of School Counseling for our school district, and I'm joined here tonight by a great group of people. In addition to our Minding Your Mind workshop, where you'll hear from a clinician and a young person for that presentation. We also are going to talk a little bit tonight about an exciting program that we are happy to be bringing into the school district called the Lifelines Trilogy program, which some of three of our four student assistance counselors for the school district are here tonight. So I would like to formally introduce Gil Pilardi is our student assistance counselors for students at the high school with last names A through G-O. Miss Balaguer, Rebecca Balaguer, is our student assistance counselor for students with GOE or past G, I guess GP, to remind me how far you go, M?
Patel.
Yes, okay, Patel A, right. And then Mrs. Christina Birch is here. She's our newest student assistance counselor, joining us after coming from some districts in South Jersey, and proud to be part of our team now as well. And she takes up the last third of the alphabet here at the high school. So I will start sharing, and our student assistance counselors will tell you a little bit about our Lifelines programs. Just give me 1 second to share our screen. Get our boxes out of the way, so hopefully you won't see that. 1 second.
All right, great. I'm, as Ms. Medley said, Gil Pilardi, one of the student assistance counselors up at the high school. And it's exciting to have something like Lifelines coming into the school district, not just looking at it school by school, but as a whole district. So Lifelines is a collaboration with Empower Somerset and Hillsborough School District. And it's an opportunity to start talking about some, real serious things that go on in life and go on in our schools, and that we're all trying to work together to make things better. If we can move on to the next slide. So what we'll review is what can you do to help in suicide prevention here as parents, why we're talking about suicide, and also what's important for us to know, and what we're going to teach the students. We'll be going in with the health teachers into health classes this year. I know at the high school will be at the 11th grade. We're also covering, I believe, Jessica, it's the 8th grade. I always forget if it's 7th or 8th. 8th grade, and then 5th grade. So those are the three target grades to get involved with Lifeline, to start working with not just the community, but the kids to get this common language together. So next slide. Thank you. So the definition of suicide. Suicide is an attempt to solve a life problem with problem solving that is impaired by psychopathology or other skill deficits. So, it's stinking thinking, as some people would say, about what's going on in someone's life. And I think that that's a great definition to understand. It's not someone taking an easy way out or this or that. It's really someone not knowing what else to do for themselves and feeling so out of sorts and not knowing what to do because something doesn't work. I'll throw this away, and they might do that to themselves, sort of thing. But I like this definition because it makes you think. So why are we talking about suicide, and why is it such a concern? And as you can see on the slide, it's just that suicide ranks as either the second or third leading cause of death for youth ages 10 to 24. That's a huge span, and that's the second or third leading cause is tremendous. And the second one is even more concerned that the age of deaths or attempts by the youngest group from 10 through 14 has increased dramatically. So we want to be able to address that. Next slide, please. So here's some data that we have up there for people to take a look at it. And it's important to look at these things. I'm not going to read it all, but I'll jump into something there. 17.7% of teens seriously consider attempting suicide. 8.6% of teens actually attempted suicide. 2.8% resulted in teen suicide attempts. It resulted in injuries or poisoning or overdose and then treated by a doctor or a nurse. So there's some things that we aren't always sure if it's an attempt or not. And it's important to kind of understand the different degrees of that so that we can really still address that thinking that needs to go on and working forward. So it is a comprehensive program. And what I love about this Lifelines, it's throughout the district. So all the buildings are trained and will be trained to continue to work with this model. So the common language is across the district from elementary schools to the high school. And we're developing our expertise, but also I really want to say that we're one of the places that parents and anyone in the community can come to say we have a concern about this kid. But there's other places that are in the community, whether it's the local police, borough safe, therapists. There are a lot of people involved on a lot of different ends and parts of this community, and we're one part of that. And this helps us kind of group all of us together to work towards helping kids and other people in the community. Next slide.
So, hi, I'm Rebecca.
I'm sorry, I was about to introduce Rebecca. Rebecca Balaguer will go on from here.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm one of the other student assistance counselors in the high school. And continuing on with what Gil was talking about, Lifelines prevention program objectives. So what our goals are that the students, through the use of the Lifelines curriculum, we hope the students will be able to recognize the threat of suicidal thoughts and behaviors and take their troubled peers seriously and not as a joke, or that they're and take them to I'm sorry, not as a joke or something that they should keep a secret and because they've been entrusted with. We want them to know the relevant facts about suicide, including the warning signs, to demonstrate positive attitudes about intervention and help-seeking behavior, such as not seeing someone who's asking for help as being wrong, but instead as a good sign and something that should be commended. Knowing how to respond to troubled behavior. This isn't to say that they're going to handle it on their own, but to respond by seeking assistance for a friend through a trusted adult. Know how to respond to troubled peers. So, what we're hoping is that the participants will tell an adult about the suicidal, about their suicidal peer, as opposed to keeping that information to themselves, knowing the resources to be able to name at least one trusted adult, and understand how the resources will respond. So basically, what we want them to know is what's going to happen when they tell someone, and what's the process, so that they feel comfortable with it, and it's not like they're passing it off and then they don't know what's happening. So basically, knowing the signs, knowing the warning signs, taking action, and obtaining help. So this Lifelines curriculum is going to be taught through the health classes, and it's going to be taught in conjunction. So the SACs and the health teachers are going to be presenting the material in conjunction. So and then we're going to talk a little bit now about the warning signs and the risk factors. So Lifelines uses, and I like this little light sign that they have. So what are the warning signs, the risk factors, and the protective factors? So I'm going to talk a little bit about each of those. So this is what we know. We know that the vast majority of youth who've decided to kill themselves have had a significant psychiatric problem, including depression, conduct disorders, or substance abuse disorders. And between a third and a quarter of them have made prior attempts. A family history, a lot of times they have a family history of suicide, and that increases their risk. And they also have reported a stressful life event, such as relationship loss, legal or disciplinary crisis, that they felt they felt pressure in, or that they have felt changes in their life that they can't control, or they haven't been able to cope with. So those are the things that we do know about that. And if we can go to the next slide. And so Lifelines uses this acronym FACTS when they're speaking of the warning signs. So we know a little bit about the risk factors, right? And so now let's talk about the warning signs. So F is for hope. F is for feelings, and a feeling of hopelessness, feelings like that things are bad and they just won't get better. Feelings of a feeling of loss of control, like they're going crazy, harming themselves or someone else. A feeling of helplessness, a belief that there's nothing that they can do to make it better. Or worthlessness, a feeling of uselessness, that they have no value, self-hate, guilt, or shame. Often they feel extreme sadness or loneliness, and anxiety and worry. Okay, A is for actions. And in actions, what we see an increased use of alcohol or other drugs, talking or writing about death or destruction, looking online for ways to kill yourself, engaging in self-destructive behavior like self-harm, often aggression or recklessness. We see that as well. And C or R is for changes. So we often see changes in their personality, behaving like a different person, becoming very withdrawn, feeling very tired, not caring about anything, or the opposite, becoming very talkative and outgoing all of a sudden when they're not usually like that. Changes in behavior, their ability to concentrate, drop in grades, a significant change in their sleeping patterns outside of the normal, like they're teenagers and, their sleeping patterns are weird. But, seeing something like that, whether they're sleeping, they don't usually sleep so much and they're sleeping a lot, or the opposite, their inability to sleep at all and they're just up for all hours. Changes in eating habits, a loss of appetite where they're not eating, or the opposite, maybe they're eating a lot. Losing interest in friends and hobbies or personal appearance, isolating themselves, things like that. Or sometimes we also see a sudden improvement after a period of time of being down and withdrawn, and all of a sudden, they were so sad, and all of a sudden everything is perfect. And that's definitely a warning sign to us. T is for threats. Threats such as statements like, I don't want to be here anymore, I wish I wasn't around, you'd be better off without me, or they're threatening suicide attempts. And S are for situations like getting in trouble in school, at home, with law enforcement. Often we see situations such as recent loss, changes in the feeling that life is just really overwhelming, being exposed to suicide. This is a big one, being exposed to suicide or death of a peer under any circumstances, and are being bullied or psychologically or sexually abused. So that's what we know, that those are definitely some of the warning signs. And now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the protective factors. So now what we know about protective factors, simply put, they're personal, behavioral, and situational characteristics that contribute to resiliency and serve to buffer against the risk. And they're important because this is what works against the risk factors. So I'm going to speak to you a little bit about that in the next slide. So some of the risk factors that we've identified, or that Lifelines has identified and that we're going to be working with, is contact with a caring adult. Research has shown that contact with helpful adults might be a protective factor for troubled youth. A sense of connection or participation in school. Positive self-esteem and good coping skills. Access to care for emotional and psychological problems or substance abuse disorders. And this might come in the form of counseling or medical assistance. And cultural and religious beliefs that discourage suicide and promote self-preservation is also seen as a protective factors. And these are important because as we start talking about what the risk factors, right, and they're a little scary, and then we start seeing the warning signs, and those are even scarier. And so, it's important to know that we have these protective factors that combat those other things. And that's really important. And Christina, my other counterpart, she is going to talk to you a little bit about your role. Christina, you're muted.
Thank you, Rebecca. Hi, everyone. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about what you can do and what steps you can take as a parent in discussing the subject of suicide with your children. You can go to the next slide. To foster your protective factors, teach your children it's okay to ask for help. Help your children identify trusted adults. It could be yourself, it could be a school counselor, it could be a teacher, it could be their aunt or uncle. Encouraging your children to participate in school activities is also a protective factor. So encouraging them to join a club where they can meet friends and have peer interactions, joining a sports team, whether that's inside or outside school. When your children do something and do it well, acknowledge those efforts so that they can see that you're proud of them, that you're engaged with them, that you see the things that they're doing. And be a good listener. Pay attention to what your kids are saying. Ask follow-up questions. Don't ask just yes and no questions. Ask questions that require them to give you a couple sentences for an answer. Go on to the next slide. The first thing I want to encourage you in talking with your children, and this may seem kind of difficult if you're facing this, but don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to have those conversations with them. Talking about suicide with your children is not going to cause them to act on what they're feeling. Pick a good time. Don't do it like while you're rushing around trying to get dinner ready and get them to their activities. Put some time aside to spend with just them. Go for a long ride in the car, go for a walk. Be direct. Kids don't really get when you beat around the bush or you make innuendos. And it's okay to ask them directly, are you having suicidal thoughts? Are you having suicidal feelings? Do you have a plan? Do you have an intent? Be honest with your kids about what you're seeing that is concerning you. What are the changes that you're seeing? Listen to what they have to say. There's this saying that says, listen to listen and don't listen to come up with an answer. So just allow yourself that opportunity to just hear what your child is saying. And let them know that if you hear something that's concerning you, there's these magic words that say, tell me more. And just ask them to tell you more about what they're thinking or what they're feeling. Remember what you've talked about with your child so that you can have a follow-up conversation with them. How are you feeling now? What do you think about this? And also talk to them about when you feel it's a point where you need to speak to someone else about what they're feeling or what their behaviors that they're having. It's okay to tell them, I feel like we need to talk to a professional about this. In the next slide, there's lots of resources out there. The first thing that you should do is if you are concerned that your child is an immediate risk, if they've told you that they have suicidal thoughts, that they have a plan, that they have intent to follow it through, I would recommend that you take them to the local emergency room. That in that situation, they need to be seen for some emergency care. If it's not at that point, there's resources, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. If you call either 988 or if you use their 800 number, 1-800-273-8255, you will immediately be connected to a trained counselor. They're available 24/7. They're there to listen, to provide support, and to help connect you with available resources in your area. They are also available. You can call them, you can text the 988 number, and you can chat with them. Okay, that's all I have. I'm going to pass on now to our next portion, to our clinician, who is Mary Ellen Dance. Thank you, Mary Ellen.
Hello. Hello. Thanks so much, Christina. So my name is Mary Ellen Dance. I am a licensed mental health counselor and with Minding Your Mind.